meeting. I would like to start with a roll call. And I had an interesting take on the roll call. Jeff, maybe you can tell me if I can do this or can't, but I was just thinking I could just roll through the panelist's name and then just do a collective I instead of going person by person.
I think it'd be better if you just rolled through and went person by person,
Okay.
so that can be recorded that they
Perfect.
actually acknowledged.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, I'll just start with Ben Coronado, Parks Commission Chair here. Mary Barber, Vice Chair.
Here.
Louise Timon.
Here.
Sarah McDaniel, Parks Commission.
Here.
And Roger Henderson, Parks Commission.
Here.
And let's see. And Spencer Abelshold from City Council.
Here.
And Mayor Kit Kuhn.
Here.
And Jennifer Keating from the Ad Hoc Committee. And the Puyallup Tribe.
I think she's on mute.
Here, sorry, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then we have Jeff Langholm staff
Here.
and Terry Garrison staff.
Here.
Perfect. All right. On that note, we do have some old business and an agenda item that I think we have a little more news on.
Want to do minutes first?
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, approval of the, I missed it completely. Approval of the December 2nd, 2020 virtual meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So
I'll
moved.
motion.
Okay, and it looks like,
And I'll second.
thank you, Mary. And any discussion from the minutes? Let's see, Roger. No? All right. Well, all those in favor of approving the December 2nd meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, meeting the minutes passed. Back to the old business. Like I was saying, I think we have some more news on this agenda item. So, and I think the mayor is going to provide that with us on the Restoring the Parks name and where that's at. So, Mayor, if I'd like to go ahead and hand it off to you and whoever else may need to present. It's all
Sure,
yours.
thank you. Yeah, I wanted to have Jennifer here from the Puyallup Tribe to join me in case you had any questions. But the Puyallup Tribe and the Ad Hoc Committee have gained further knowledge and progress with public outreach, even though this was going to be the first night. And we now have a concept that we feel most everyone will be pleased with. In fact, I even called Mary Beth Austin today and informed her of our new plan. And though we haven't been able to present it to her, send it to her, she seems very supportive of it. So this concept is not only recognizes the Squababish people of the Puyallup Tribe, but it will also keep the Austin Park name as well. Now, our concept is not exactly what was posted for the public or at the location. So it is not right for us to present it differently to you tonight. It is not exactly the same, and it would not be fair because people would be commenting on something that's different. So our goal is to present our concept, the PowerPoint and the presentation to you in February at your February meeting, and then allow the public to comment at that with their thoughts. And we'll also post this down at the location as well, the new thoughts. So it's, again, to recognize the tribe and also not change by having the Austin Park name. So we wanted to thank all of the citizens and the people, as well as yourselves, for coming who may have wanted to comment. And we hope to hear from them next month when we give you our presentation. Again, we haven't found anyone that's not supportive, but we can't show you something that is not what we posted for the public. Again, Jennifer and Brandon are very supportive of this as well. If you have any minor questions, but otherwise it's better to present it to you when we have it in its entirety.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. I am in agreement with you in that the transparency needs to be clear to the public, and we need to go through the proper process. So if what you guys are proposing has changed enough where it doesn't fit with what was proposed to the public, then I agree that this should be postponed for the time being until the public has time to input properly.
So when you have your February meeting is what, within the first week or 10 days?
It's the first Wednesday of the month.
Okay, would you allow us the time to do it at that meeting?
Absolutely. Jeff, as long as there's not too much on that you have in mind for the next meeting, I don't think there should be an issue.
No, I think that we'll have time to do this at the next meeting for sure.
Okay, and we think this
Perfect.
is a much better concept that most everyone will be pleased with. Jennifer, do you have anything to add?
The only thing I have to add is just that we heard loud and clear the concern of any sort of dismissal of the Austin family history, and that we wanted to take the time to find a way to honor both Austin family history as well as tribal history. So while it's inconveniencing, I greatly apologize. I think in the end run, it's a better project that promotes history for all of Gig Harbor.
That's
Awesome.
great. And Terry, I sent you the statement from Mary Beth Austin. Jeff's bounced back, but I actually talked to her today, and she's going to give us a new statement. So most of what I sent you will give us some history with the Austins, but she's going to provide another statement, probably in support of what we're recognizing. So, I just sent it to you, Terry, just so you had it.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you all. I appreciate it. And thank you for letting us go first, too. I'm doing another Zoom right now with the legislators.
Sure. Absolutely. Keep up the good work, you guys. I know you guys are working really hard on this, so appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your hard work, too.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay. So on that note, we'll postpone the Restoring the Parks name project until the February 3rd Parks Commission meeting. And we look forward to your presentation.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
There we go. All right. So on to agenda item number 2 for old business is the review of the adopted 2021 Parks Commission work plan, which I was adopted by the Public Works Committee and City Council with their budget. And I think we're going to just kind of go over, is the idea, Jeff, to kind of calendar everything out, or more just get a broad view of what everything's on the plate and then figure that out?
Yeah, I was just going to start by going through the document. I think you were all provided the document as part of the agenda tonight. So just want to go through that and make sure that everybody understood the changes that were made since it left the Parks Commission's hand and then went Public Works Committee and then was modified again at the City Council slightly. So I just want to make sure that that was captured, and then take a look at what the priorities are that are on the list, and then discuss what needs to be on the next couple agendas for the Parks Commission in, for example, February, March, maybe April, to start to get those priorities and work plan items checked off the list.
Will we have opportunity to make comments on the list or questions, clarifications?
Yeah, absolutely. Going through this, yeah, you absolutely have opportunities to make comments and have questions. I have to say, though, this is the adopted list by City Council.
Yeah,
so-
no, not changing the adopted list,
Right.
but clearly
Yep.
there's things that need clarifying.
Sure. I'm in the process of bringing that up now to share screen. Sorry, it was a hectic afternoon.
It certainly sounded like it. And Jeff, it looks like we still have one attendee still in the audience. Do you mind a quick message just saying that public input will be allowed at the next meeting?
Sure, yeah.
So if you're looking to put on public input regarding the restore name, there will be an opportunity to provide that at the February 3rd meeting. I apologize for any inconvenience today, but we look forward to any comment that you're able to provide at the next meeting. Thank you.
And there is public comment at the very end of this meeting, if that's
At
also
this meeting
what
as well,
their
yeah.
interest is. Yep. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, which is essentially the adopted work plan that you received previously. There's what I'm looking for. And hopefully all of you can see that now. Okay. Sorry. Balance out all my screens here. Okay, so the council generally adopted what the Public Works Committee rankings were. And the Public Works Committee did something very similar to what the Parks Commission did, which is just go through a high, medium, low adoption process for prioritizing and not numbering them one through whatever, with one as the highest priority. And so that leaves a little bit of interpretation when you have, let's say that just the first three items are all unanimous that those three are top priorities about how you implement those. But so that gives you a little bit of flexibility as the Parks Commission to see what's there and how you need to do that. Really the main key that was changed is on this item here. Review continuing capital project design and development. And I didn't highlight it, but I can do that here. Let me just, this section in particular. So I'll read that aloud, but this is the way it reads now, and it's different, a little bit different than what it was before. The Parks Commission should focus on the public input process and investigate cost-saving concepts for projects included in the adopted budget, but will not require engineering support in 2021 and will not have authority to adjust project scope or reject project elements. The key change in here is that will not require engineering support in 2021. The City Council has approved a budget and set the expectation for the engineering division to do a lot of work and be able to complete all of the objectives in the budget, which is an overwhelming task, even with some additional funding for additional consultants and staff to support us. So the council put that caveat in there and made that modification because there was a recognition that nothing else should be handed to engineering division to be able to try and complete because they already had too much on their plate. So that's why that was modified by the City Council. Other than that, you all saw the very last page too, I'm sure. And this was a change at the Public Works Committee. Public Works Committee ranked each individual update or review item for the PROS plan instead of just the task, the general task of updating and reviewing the PROS plan. So you can see how the City Council, aka Public Works Committee, prioritized specific tasks for completing the PROS plan update. So something to focus on when we jump into that, which we'll talk about at the very end of this presentation. But at this point, I'm happy to open it up to questions. I don't know, if, Roger, if you have any or if anyone does.
I have kind of a slug of questions.
Okay.
I'll try to be brief, quick. An overarching question. So for priorities other than 3-00, which there's plenty of them, like for instance, 2-0-1 or 210, do we take those on, or actually who makes that decision whether we say, okay, let's also do a 2-1-0 priority? It's clear on 300, but it's unclear to me what the Parks Commission would do with a priority, for instance, the connectivity study, PROS plan and 88 transition plan. That's a 2-0-1. Is that, do we do that or do we not do that, or who makes that decision?
The way I'm going to interpret that, and I think that's going to be a decision that I'm going to make, is that that item, the connectivity study, can proceed after the other two items, the 300 rankings, are either already in motion or completed. So
Okay.
complete the high priority items first and then jump down to the next one, which is the connectivity study, and then revisit Veterans Park Master Plan only if there is time available.
Okay, because it looks to me like there's 6 3-00 priorities or projects, whatever we want to call them. So
Yeah.
you're going to interpret this that we have to get those done, or at least as much as we can done in the year before we go on to any other lower priority project.
Right. Now, that said, things like the pros plan update is going to be discussed all within one, not one meeting, but within one item for each meeting. So
Yeah,
starting sometime in maybe March or April, we're going to start talking about the pros plan update, and then we'll just tick off those items that are highest priority first, and then jump to the next level priority.
Okay. I got other questions, but if somebody else wants to jump in with something, don't let me monopolize this thing. You know I like to talk.
I think a few of us do. Do we want to utilize the raise hand function, or do we just want to do a kind of a rapid fire? I don't know if we want to keep it, an opportunity wise, or should we just yield the floor to Roger until he gets through his questions and then we just go to the next person? Maybe that, Roger, since you were first, go ahead and ask your questions, and then if you have other questions, feel free to raise your hand.
Okay, so let's reference the Crescent Creek visioning plan. I read, Jeff, on your update that you guys have gotten a contract with HBB to do the visioning plan. How does this Crescent Creek visioning tie in with that consultant contract you've got with HBB? Because it looked like it's the same thing.
It is the same thing.
Okay, so do we chat with them? Do we meet with them? Do they just give us stuff that we say yes, no, or how does that work?
They've been put on hold since the contract was awarded, I believe, I want to say
March?
Yeah, it could have been February, March of last year.
Yeah.
And immediately it was placed on hold because of the pandemic and not being able to bring the public in. We didn't have a method like we do today to have public open houses virtually. So they've been placed on hold. It is something that the council has, and I can bring up the actual budget item for Crescent Creek Park visioning and master planning. But part of that is the council needs to decide what they want to do with the Masonic Lodge. And that's why at the very end, it says to include the old Masonic Lodge.
Yeah.
And so maybe that would make a little more sense, but we need to wait until council and the public. I think it outlines actually a way for the public to provide input. And I'm trying to get open again, too many screens open here. I can open the budget here and take a look at what that says in the budget itself. So if you want to ask another question while I do that.
Yeah, I had a couple more, but anybody jump in if I'm monopolizing this. On the review continuing capital project design and development tasker there, and I listened to the city council's discussions on kind of what they wanted the Parks Commission to do and some of their concern. As I read it, the first sentence says, give the Parks Commission opportunities to remain apprised of status and updates on the capital projects. Okay, got that. You always do that when you give us your report. But then the second sentence said, Parks Commission focus on the public input process. Okay, that limits that. But it says, and investigate cost savings concepts for projects included in the adopted budget. Now, as an engineer, my assumption is that we would be able to look at designs as they're coming up if we are expected to come up with cost saving comments or concepts. So it sounds like the first sentence says, only thing that we get is to be appraised of, okay, here's what's going on. Have a nice day. Got any questions? Good. But it says that we want us to investigate cost savings. Well, in order to investigate cost savings as an engineer, at least, I got to look at plans and or specs to say, okay, maybe we can save money here. I understand the authority not to adjust project scope. You don't want us doing that. That's fine. But I guess it seems like the first sentence might be in some sort of a conflict of requiring of us trying to do the cost saving concepts.
Well, I think the intent there is to have the Parks Commission see the plans at their preliminary or draft status,
Okay.
maybe 30%, 60%, and provide some cost-saving concepts at that point, and then give that back to city engineering staff to decide if that's going to proceed or if it's something that will not be able to be accepted. But it's not, I think the intent of that last statement is to make sure that just because the Parks Commission, for example, says paint the pole blue, and originally it was designed to be painted green, that the Parks Commission shouldn't be offended if we say, well, our public works standards say all street lights should be painted green, so we're not going to
Yeah.
change that.
Makes sense. Got that. And you don't want to sit there mucking around with your scope because that causes cost changes and everything
Yep.
else.
Yep.
You've been there, done that. And then I think my last comment on the thing, and then I'll be quiet, is if you go down to update review of the 2022 pros plan, and it said inventory of parks facilities update for 2020 pros plan. Then there was something that says complete the inventory of existing park facilities. It's good. I think it would be a great thing for us to do. If we're going to do that, the Parks Commission, I'm assuming that's what you want us to at least attempt to do. Will we be able to get any support from engineering, as a city engineering, say the GIS folks, to produce maps or to produce something for us to go out and do this, or do I need to draw my own maps? Because I'm sensitive about the comment that said we don't want the Parks Commission doing anything in 2021 that's going to cause any time being spent on from the city staff. And so, for instance, in this 300 priority here, and you want us to update the inventory of parks, and I come to you and I say, or I come to Ben and say, Ben, I think in order for us to do this, we're going to need a GIS map of all the parks so we can maybe mark them up. But if we come to you and you're going to say, well, sorry, that's going to take an hour and 20 minutes of my GIS folks, have a nice day, I can't do 3-00.
Yeah. Fortunately, I can answer that, and is that the GIS time isn't necessarily falls within an engineering division. It falls
Okay.
within
All
general
right.
public works, so I can allow that to
Okay,
definitely happen.
good.
Yep.
Perfect. I think that's all I've got. I don't have any more prepared statements today.
Okay, before I see Louise had a question and Ben has his hand up. I was going to try.
Sorry.
I was just going to try and answer Roger's question about budget in Crescent Creek. Is that okay if I do that first?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to switch here. I found it in the budget where it was. So hopefully I just switched the PDF. Hopefully you can all see this new image. Okay. So right here is items. This is, by the way, I'm zoomed way in so you can't see it. This is the 2021 adopted budget. This is the Parks Development section. Oops. Ah, shoot. Moved too fast here. So this is page 135, objectives for Parks Development. So there's Masonic Lodge building improvements and the Crescent Creek Park visioning and master planning. So something to be very aware of is item 4, which is the Crescent Creek Park visioning and master planning. At the very end, pending council direction on the city's proposed Masonic Lodge building improvements. So city council needs to go through and decide what they're going to do with the Masonic Lodge building. Options include tear it down, remodel it, leave it as is. Essentially, that's it. Remodeling could be minimal or expansive. So that needs to happen.
Okay, so it sounds like the city council has to do number 3 first. Before
no, the number 3 is actually construct the building improvements.
Okay.
If that's funding for those improvements,
all right.
it's the sub part of number 4 first.
So
The city council needs to do.
Is that Masonic Lodge building improvements going to be taken up with the city council relatively soon?
Yes, I hope so. I don't know if I'm going to wait for the new parks manager to come on board. We do want, I'm sure the city council will want to have some input from the public, and the consultant might help us with that. It's not in their scope to do that, but we have to have that discussion. But yeah, I hope it's probably going to be in the March or April timeframe. I hope.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Okay, can I just get a point of clarification on that? So council directive towards the visioning before all improvements, correct?
Well, council direction is just for the Masonic Lodge building improvements, whether or how to proceed with the Masonic Lodge. The idea that the mayor has here is that he wants to know if the council wants to keep the Masonic Lodge, and that decision will be presented as such in the visioning process. The council or the mayor is apprehensive about going to the public with the open-ended question of, what are we going to do with the Masonic Lodge? Is it staying or is it going? If the council wants to keep it, then as part of the visioning process, then the visioning process can address what the public thinks we should do with it. If the council says, nope, demolish it, get rid of the building, then the public can then provide input on what are you going to do when the building's gone with this large area here. Did that help, Ben?
Gotcha. Yeah, that did. So sorry, I think Luis is before me on the questions. We can come back to that if it helps.
Mine is just a quick point for Roger. I did prepare a fairly exhaustive park inventory spreadsheet that anyone could take out, and it asked things like what were the condition of the trails and bathrooms and parking and whatever, all kinds of things. And so doing that inventory would tell us if there were obvious things that needed to be repaired, or things that give us an opportunity to say some things that would make it better, and in a Google Doc kind of format, so we can sort it in different ways, and anyone could go out, do a park, and then add their data to it. So I think that that's a doable approach to that. And then if something required special mapping or other things, then you would know that once you get it.
Yeah, just for me, I'd like to see what the city has as far as on paper, and then when we look and see what's there, I want to make sure that the city doesn't say there's a slide there and there isn't a slide there, or we say there's a slide there and the city says no, there's no slide there. So,
And some of that's in the existing pros plan too, Roger.
yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say some of that is there, and
Okay.
And even though you said paper, I laughed a little bit that even though we have a large format plotter, we can print out maps however many you need, and it doesn't get used very much anymore because so much of our work is digital now. Ink dries up, but no, we can do that for you. We can provide you some maps.
Good. Yeah.
Can I just interject, and maybe it won't work this way, but previously when the pros plan was updated, the consultant who did the inventory. So the Parks Commission role in the inventory is strictly support, or if you know things about it. I think that's how it would work again, is whoever's doing the pros plan update will do an extensive inventory. We just need to make sure that the slide is in there or whatever, but it's not, I don't think, it's not on our shoulders to make sure there's an inventory, right?
Well, that's an excellent question.
It's funny you say that. In the adopted plan, and I just flipped over here to hopefully you can see the new screen now. This is Parks Operating Fund. This is Objective 5, 2022 Pros Plan Update. And it does say in here, should be adopted by council no later than March 2022. Since the parks manager position is currently vacant, Silly will likely require support of a consultant. If we are, out of some miracle, and I'm going to go over this a little later, but if out of some miracle, we are able to get a parks manager on board very soon, I would hope that the parks manager, combined efforts between parks commissioners and parks manager, we will be able to do the pros plan update without a consultant. I appreciate consultants. They definitely have a role in what they do. Though in my experience, when we have people in-house that are passionate and well-versed in our things like our own park systems, we tend to get a better product, at least a more detailed product. The thing I like about consultants is they bring in a lot of outside ideas. Oh, I never thought about that. Oh, that's the way they've done it elsewhere. Okay, well, great. That's good to know. So we might do all of the above, but in this round, and Sarah, from your experience last time, I would hope that the Parks Commission would have more of a role than they did last time. So doing the legwork that Louise has drafted and Roger wants to do, and I'm sure all of you want to participate in, and I think that would be a big help. And even if we do get a parks manager soon and we have a consultant that we bring on board, I think that the combined effort will be a better product than what we have even today, which I think is a very good product.
I think it would be optimum if we have a parks manager who can be an integral part of this, because it's a great way for that person to gain a tremendous amount of knowledge right off the bat too, and learn what the priorities are.
Yeah, I agree. Last time when we did this, if for those of you who are here, Katrina was brought on board the month it was adopted. I had been trying to get a parks manager in here, and the position was adopted by City Council, but we hadn't been filling it for a year, and so we ended up going out with a consultant, and she did a good job. But yeah, I agree. Parks manager would be a great way to introduce that person to our park system and to the Parks Commission. And they can also bring in great new ideas of how to do things. Because one of the things that, I'm spoiling all the things we'll talk about later, but that I'm looking for in a parks manager is, again, to be have the planner background and the planner history. So I think it works very well in this position.
Then Jeff, one of the questions that I have on the pros plan, on the timing of these 300 priorities, is at what point, if we're trying to get the pros plan done so that it's approved by council by March of 2022, at what point do we say we need to give more of this to the consultant because we don't have a parks manager yet? I guess what's that drop dead time, or what's the timing you're looking at?
Probably May or June. We'll have a better idea by May or June. If we're getting into July and we don't have a manager, or we don't have a manager that is and that is able to get this moving as quickly as we need to, we definitely need to have a consultant on board to help us get through this. And so, yeah, again, I hope by May we start to think about it and revisit it. But ideally, even with maybe what Louise has and Roger's doing and all of you want to participate in, maybe you can start sooner than that and get a lot of this out of the way.
So don't be scared to start chewing into the last one to get an idea of what you're looking for.
Right, even the inventory of park facilities, and yeah. Yep.
So do we have a copy of that, or a place where a link that we can go look for?
I had not quite finished it, but and I got distracted by the ad hoc committee. However, and I had asked a question, but I don't remember what the answer was, frankly. Is it okay with all of you if I put it in Google Docs so we can all get to it? You know, is that fine, and we'll just flush it out? Or is Jeff, is there some security issue? And that was my question, and I just don't remember the answer.
I guess I would ask Terry to create a folder on our box drive in the cloud that all of you would have access to. She can send you a link, and it would be based out of that, and all of you can grab it, update it with your own names or something, and then we can merge it together later.
Yeah, it asks, it is a survey form, so it asks for a drop down of who's completing it, and that was the other thing. We lost a couple of commission members, and I was editing for that. You know, there was a couple of, I can tune it up and get it to Terry.
Okay.
Welcome in.
Okay, great. Now that said, this is something that Terry and I are dealing with, but the city is apparently, at least hopefully through the end of 2021, but we're going away from Box. And so we have to find a new way. We're looking at Microsoft OneDrive, but for now, I think for this process, we can keep everything on our Box links and have access, because it's worked pretty well in the past for everybody to have access to those cloud drives.
Jeff, I had a question. The 30, 60, 90% reviews, you mentioned that, and we've discussed that. Maybe you could fill us in, like, where do we fit best in the review process to ideally find cost saving benefits?
Well, I would like to say at the 30% level, because that's when the sooner you can identify changes, the better. So ideally, I'd like to say 30%, but at 30%, oftentimes the details aren't there that you might find cost savings in. It's just the general layout of the site or of the park. But so I would probably say at the 60% design level, we start to get specifications and more details in that level. We used to submit land use permits at 30%, but land use permits have been becoming more and more detail oriented, requiring us to identify exactly how we're doing things. So we've been having to wait until 60% design to submit some land use permits. The reason that's a problem is because timing wise, to get from design to 60% design to 90% or 100% design, which is the time you go out to bid, doesn't take us usually that long to do, especially compared to the land use and requirements, permitting requirements that come through there. Of course, many of our parks are on the water. They're in the Shoreline district. They have review by U.S. Army Corps, National Marine Fisheries, Fish and Wildlife, DNR, not to mention just the city's own local permits. And so those processes can easily take a year or more. And while it might take us a few months to get from 60% to final bid documents, we have to wait for permitting. So we try and get the permits submitted as soon as possible. Major changes in design between 60 and 90 that require permit changes are very disruptive to the permitting process. So again, we will probably first approach the Parks Commission at 30% design. And then if we think that there's time, we'll come back at 60% design. But by the time you get to 90%, we'll gladly show you what's going on, but we're not going to be taking input, answering questions mostly.
Gotcha. Can I ask you currently kind of where some ongoing projects are, just to get an idea, like the Ansich pier or the the float?
Community paddlers dock.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is at 90%. We're receiving 90% design drawings hopefully next week. We already have National Marine Fisheries approval. They've approved all of our mitigation. U.S. Army Corps is we've been keeping them in the loop all along. Our reviewer for U.S. Army Corps has said, yeah, that sounds great. They were really just concerned about how National Marine Fisheries was going to respond. So, and Roger, you know that process.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so now National Marine Fisheries has accepted it. We are working with our city land use folks. Kimberly Mahoney is working on this one. And she can, the way this works now is that now we have to go through, get a CP determination, go to the hearing examiner, and so on and so forth, go through the shoreline process, down to Department of Ecology. We don't expect to get through the land use process until probably May or June, even though the hardest permit to come by, National Marine Fisheries and the U.S. Army Corps, is all but done. But we're getting into 90%. We've got some cost estimates the council is going to have to wrestle with because the cost estimates are coming in higher than we first anticipated. But yeah, so that's one that is, the ship has already left the dock. So.
Okay. Nice.
It's a canoe that's leaving the dock.
No, sorry, that's right. That's right. That paddleboard canoe.
How about the signage project? Is that coming up soon?
Yes,
What
that
project?
The signage, Cushman Trail etiquette. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, let me see. That's not under parks though. That's just that was funded. I'm almost certain that was
Okay,
funded.
I was wondering about that because I didn't see it and funded under the parks part. And I was like, where is that at?
Is
It's
that
on
what-
our, it's
Oh, there it is. It's
high priority on the
300.
water
Yeah.
plan, but
It's a
Yeah.
300.
Yeah, it's in the budget. You said though, Jeff.
Let me double check. I'm going to put this screen on pause so I can sift because all of you would be nauseous with me surfing through the budget real quick. Sorry, my lights are flashing. My 4-year-old decided he wanted to turn off the light here a second ago. No. Okay, let me see. Okay, it's not under park operating. Let me continue to scroll.
think I remember last time you said it was in the budget.
I thought it was. I'm looking under,
Yeah.
under park capital, park development now. About half the budget is park or public works rated stuff. So I don't have all these memorized yet.
And GIS is actually administrative costs.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Good.
You know, I don't see it as an objective in the budget itself. But that doesn't mean it's not in the budget. I would have to talk with our operational costs. Our operations folks and our operational costs often have budgeted items for things like this in a separate line item. These objectives are key items. And here I'm going to flip back over to start sharing my screen. So this is again, we're back to Parks Development, page 135 of the budget. There's 2 pages of park development objectives. These are typically the larger items. Some of them are just ones that people wanted to focus on, but this is, I think the signs were just put under park operating supplies, and that's not going to show up here. That's going to show up on a very detailed spreadsheet that the council doesn't want to look at. But we will be able to fund these, but it's not I don't see it as an objective here.
So is that something you have a consultant that's going to help with, or would we come up with the signage, or how, in that particular case, how would the Parks Commission integrate our work into that?
The Parks Commission would come up with the signs, do the work to find what the signs would look like. We will work with the staff, will work with the actual sign company to develop the graphics themselves. We can go back and forth on that, but that'll be the cost of the sign, is working with the sign company to develop what the graphics will look like. But the message, the frequency, all that, we need the Parks Commission and the Parks, the Parks Manager would need to help with that.
Okay, good.
I'm looking in one other place. I don't see it though.
Oh, okay, for the signage for that, or the
Yeah.
budget allowance.
Budget, yeah.
And on the page above you under park development narrative of goals.
Yep.
Those are not prioritized, right? They're just numbered.
No, they're
Okay.
just numbered, yeah.
So the first one on there though, okay, so number 1 is city-owned historic properties, prioritize improvements, including the Wilkinson Barn Park. Yet under the Public Works Committee votes, I believe the visioning for that got 003.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
It's it's something that the council doesn't focus too much on some of the goals that are outlined in the budget. They focus more on the actual dollar amounts. But you're right. But that goal has been in there for a while, and we've been trying to go after grants. For better or for worse, we're not very high up on the grant list because the barn isn't about ready to fall down. We keep going in with our operations crew and securing it. We make sure it's not ready to fall down. And for those of you who were around a few years ago in February when we had the massive snow, there was a lot of weight on that roof, and it did just fine. So our operations crew has done a good job of stabilizing it enough where it's going to withstand. And so since it's not about ready to fall over, we don't rank very high for bond restoration grants. But part of the Wilkinson Farm visioning, if at the point we get to that, will help define what the use will be. Once the use is defined for the barn, then maybe that will help and we can go after different grants, because all of a sudden the barn isn't just a barn anymore. It's going to be some sort of use identified, and it's identified in a council approved plan.
Gotcha.
So just one quick thing. I'm going to unpause my screen here in a second. I just want to show you. Again, this is just nerdy budgeting stuff, but so this is also from the budget itself. These are the expenditures for parks operating. The supplies line here, that's probably, we have a very detailed spreadsheet of what is included in all these supplies. And so for the 2021 budget of $124,000, that goes to a lot of different things, but I'm guessing that the signs are within that somewhere.
Okay. Oops.
All right. So
yeah.
Any other questions on the work plan? That's what we have before us. I mean, for the items here, I was just next. I was going to go into talking about what we need to jump on probably sooner rather than later.
That's what I was going to ask you, Jeff, because I think that, you know, like creating the Adopt a Park program was something that we thought we could kind of jump on and get out fairly expeditiously, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I wanted to get your input.
Yeah. So I think that's a very good point. There's a few things here, these 3 zeros. The Crescent Creek visioning, that's kind of the timing on that's kind of out of your hands. I assume as soon as the council gets through their process and the consultant is brought back on board, then the Parks Commission will get involved, but that'll have to wait. But the two things that I see right now are the Adopt the Park program, Parks Appreciation Day are probably some things you can address now. Of course, Parks Appreciation Day look a little different, but hopefully we can still do something in April, at the end of April, depending on coronavirus and the pandemic and the governor's level of participation, and gatherings. The Christian Trail etiquette signs, that's something that you could proceed with rather quickly. Of course, what's not on here is the Restoring the Park name. The Parks Capital Projects, Ben alluded to this. What's on your task list for projects you can look at? ANSY's human-powered craft storage actually is something that we staff need to get moving on fairly quickly, because we need to have a design completed and constructed by the time the community paddlers dock is in place. Right now, we're thinking the community paddlers dock will be constructed and operational, open to the public by October, November of this year, of 2021.
So when you need the design done then for the storage? By October?
No, we need it constructed by October.
Okay.
So that's one thing that we could start looking at. We're basically at ground zero. That's something where we could get you some interior, for those of you who like to look at designs, we can get you some interior layouts of what the building looks like and draw a line on there saying this half is public, this other half, or this 40% is public, this 60% is Gig Harbor Canoe and Kayak Race Team area, and that's off limits. And then we can do a tour if you want. We could get the Parks Mission down there, open the doors, walk through there, be socially distanced and masked, and take a look at what's down there, and have that on an off day from our regular meetings. So,
seen a lot of head nodding to that idea.
Yeah, okay.
And in my canoe and kayak life, I had prepared not a presentation, but a set of resources for them in thinking about the boathouse. And if that includes multiple really cool, very dense storage racking schemes. And I have photos for all of those, which I would bring with me. And we are not the first people that have been trying to fit lots of boats into small spaces. So
yeah,
we don't.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Louise, because I've been talking to Coach Aaron Houston and also Alan Anderson about this, because they're trying to bring somebody, get a consultant or get a designer on board for what they need to do on their side of the building.
Okay.
I acknowledge and accept that having a combined effort on this would be great. However, I also want to make sure we're all very aware that the storage rack for a stand-up paddle boards, which a lot of people have stand-up paddle boards,
Yep.
and a storage system for,
Sprint canoes.
Sprint canoes are much different, even from the
not the
canoes
same.
for Joe Q Public or Jane
Yep.
Q Public. It's very different. So we do need to accept the fact, and then we have to make decisions. We have to set rules. We have to make decisions on. I shouldn't say set rules. We have to make Parks Mission's gonna have to make recommendations on what rules might look like. Again, that's something that hopefully the Parks Manager and the Parks Commission can work on. We need to make decisions on how we're going to secure, if we're going to allow somebody to bring their own padlock in. I mean, that all takes up room if you start doing security. Or do we just say, you know, once you have a code, that's as secure as you're going to get. Anybody who walks in that building can grab whatever they want. But anyway, those kinds of decisions have to be made throughout this process.
That almost sounds like a a really high priority. I know it's only a 210, but I mean, that sounds like it's pretty time sensitive.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how does that play in? Like, we can't even touch that until we finish the other 6 things?
No, I think you can jump into that because that particular one does have a timeline associated with it. It's coming up. Yeah, I think that you could.
Yeah.
The other ones are not as, the ones that are listed, at least not as high a priority, are not ready to go yet. The commercial fishing home port, there's a discussion in the budget about that. Let me see if I can find that real quick, about just having
And is that
about
anywhere
having
in the design process? Is that like, or is that still kind of at 0?
I'm sorry, I cut you off on that.
Oh,
Ben. What
sorry,
was
Jeff. Was that anywhere in the design process? Any milestone? Home port?
Conceptual.
Okay.
It's very conceptual at this point, and here's what the budget says for next year. Okay, I'm gonna unpause. So hopefully you can see this now. This is again Parks Development budget objectives. Number 11, commercial fishing home port conceptual design. I anticipate that we will kick off objective number 11 sometime this summer or later this fall. Again, fishermen or fishing vessel operators are typically gone for the summer. We definitely want to include them in this, but we can get started, do some preliminary work, maybe as late or as early as August or September, maybe October.
Okay.
So good time to bring the Parks Commission in.
So does anybody have any other like clarifying questions, or should we go ahead and make our way towards kind of scheduling some of these things out for some of our meetings? Yes.
I'm okay with scheduling.
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay. So is priority number 1 the human powered craft storage, or is it one of the 300s?
Well, I think you should start with the 300s because I am not going to be able to get moving on human powered craft storage until probably at least March. Again, I'll just say it now. One of the things I was going to mention is we were about ready to advertise for the Parks Manager position sometime possibly next week or the week after. There was a lot of discussion leading up to this decision to advertise about whether or not the Parks Manager position will stay a Parks Manager. There's talk about doing a reorganization, possibly moving Parks Manager out of Public Works, possibly retitling it and having it be an administration function. Right now, because of how this position interacts with both engineering design, planning, capital project planning, and operations and management of leases for park facilities, we have kept it in Public Works. And so I'm thinking that that'll stay that way for at least the next 3 to 5 years. We might look at the position later, but right now we've had a decision that we're allowed to go ahead and advertise. I hope to get someone on board them and have them ready to go by the first Parks Commission meeting in April. That's a little aggressive. If Terry wasn't so professional, she'd probably fall over in her chair laughing. So, but that's my hope. That's my hope. So, but then the Parks or the Parks Manager could come on board and start to help. And so one of the things that would be that the annotated human powered storage would then be one of the things on that person's priority list to start diving into.
Okay.
So Jeff, what is our involvement if any, in that hiring process? Did we have the opportunity to meet the final few candidates, or?
Yeah, I'm thinking that we'll have one representative from the Parks Commission on the, we typically do an initial interview and then a second interview. The second interview often includes someone at this, for this position's level, someone like the city administrator. But I would like to bring someone from the Parks Commission into the second round of interviews. Sometimes it's one person that we do a second round interview on, sometimes it's two or maybe three, depending on how many candidates we have. I have no idea what to expect in this COVID era hiring. I've probably told you before, this is one of the reasons why I've been reluctant to hire parks manager in this COVID era, is because bringing them on board is going to, in my opinion, probably going to be a challenge. I can't interact with the person the same way I have in the past to make sure that we're constantly, because this parks manager position deals with this body, the council, city administration, mayor, planning, it deals with everybody. And I'm trying to hand this off and explain how all of this functions. So doing it virtually, it's harder for me to have that out in concept. Fortunately, Katrina has been a guinea pig. She has already brought in people. So has Kelly Busey. So has HR. So it can be done. And so since they've done it, I will learn from them and do my best to make sure that we get somebody on board as best as we can. So
We wish you luck.
Yeah, I'm sure you want it as bad as we do.
yeah.
Okay, so can we? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
So I was gonna say, so it's a long way to say that I see the antique storage facility starting sometime in March or April. But to create an Adopt a Park program, I think we've already discussed that. That and the Parks Appreciation Day can be started February. Cushion Trail etiquette signs, that can be started in February. But that's a lot to start in February because now we also have the Restoring the Park name in February.
One question that I had on the Adopt a Park and the Park Appreciation Day was, it seems like, and Terry or Sarah or Louise, somebody may remember, it seems like we started, especially on the Adopt a Park, I think someone had done, maybe it was Nicole, had done some research and there was some structure that already existed.
It was me. There are numerous cities that have Adopt a Park programs, and they very kindly have posted all of their forms, all their agreements, all their organizational materials are all available to us. So we could pull those down and really look at them properly, and say, look at the combination of how their website works for it, and then all of the underlying forms, which is like the city not having liability for someone that goes out and pulls a weed and breaks their ankle, right? There's legal stuff involved here too, but we could have a look at those, and we can do that online if we got the documents together the links together in a usable way, and then see what one feels like is better for the city, for our structure of city, and recommend one or two of those. But the lawyer is still, Gig Harbor city attorney is still going to have to look at the forms, right? I mean, we can't, we can make that recommendation, but there's still some structure that the city has to devote some resources to.
Do we need liability release forms for?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
At least every Adopt a Park program I looked at for every city had them. So I assume that their lawyers had opined on this.
Even for the Parks Appreciation Day?
Not at Parks Appreciation, but they Adopt a Park.
How do those differentiate?
No, I think they did for Appreciation Day too. I mean, I don't think any city or any organization wants to incur liability if someone trips and falls.
Gotcha.
While they're having their day.
I was like, I remember having a sign-in sheet, but I don't remember having a liability release for the Parks Appreciation Day.
So for Parks Appreciation Day, the actual sign-in sheet has the liability language on there.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Terry.
So that way each person doesn't have to fill out a form. But But we also have draft documents for Adopt a Park program that we did probably maybe 10 years ago or so.
Oh, good.
That is based on our Adopt a Road program. But it would be good to see details from other jurisdictions. That might be helpful to, for how to structure it.
Mhm.
And I was specifically looking for cities that were of kind of similar size and scope, so that it was as close to apples as it could be. So I do have that list. I retained the links.
And I might also use the Washington State Parks Commission site as well, because they have one. And just to make sure we're using the right information, because I know depending on what county you're in, it can be different and stuff like that. But I guess that's when we tackle that. Sorry, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. I was getting ahead of ourselves.
But I guess I'm wondering how do we tackle it? How do we move it from where we are now to a document that we can review or something like that?
What I would suggest is a simple Word document where I cut and paste the links from the various cities with the various documents that go with that city for their program. And then we could, everyone can have a look at that you can click through the links, and then we can come back together with some opinions about what we saw, or what we reviewed. How would
And
that be?
start with Terry's document with the existing document too?
Yep.
I think that seems to make sense as well.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Do we just want to add that to the, so already in February, we're going to have the public hearing scheduled.
Yes.
Is that going to be too much added to the February schedule on top of that?
It's getting close for me, I will say, but
Yeah.
because
Yeah, so
I can't tell now that we're getting closer to the final concept for this restoring the name. If there's just a couple more slides to edit or create, then that's one thing. I don't think we have to redo the PowerPoint. That would be a big task on my part. I think the PowerPoint is fine, except for the last two slides. And Jeff is shaking his head yes, so I'm happy to see that. So hopefully I just have one more ad hoc meeting. If I say one, I probably mean three, and then
right.
Couple
Depending
more
on what day it
edits.
is.
Right. Well, inevitably it will be all day Tuesday. So we have a couple more things to do there, but I have time to.
Maybe we just choose develop the list of parks properties needing a master plan if required by the pros plan.
Yeah.
Maybe we just add something that easy for the next one, and then kind of dig for one on a more available future meeting.
Well, I want to make sure we also address the Parks.
Is there a way to get all the?
Yeah, if we're going to do Parks Appreciation Day in April, we have to do that in February.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. Do we have to do it in April?
No. Parks Appreciation Day is a national initiative, and it happens in April, but I don't know that we have to do Parks Appreciation in April. I don't know how many people in the middle of the pandemic are doing Parks Appreciation.
Right.
That's what I was just going to say is last year when we talked about doing it in the fall, we talked about who would be comfortable doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I poured the water on that then. I'm not sure I'm going to be comfortable being around that many people in such close proximity that early. I'll just throw it out.
I'm going to take a quick look on PennMet's calendar and see if they put their Parks Appreciation Day in April.
I doubt it, because usually Tacoma is the one who coordinates a lot of it.
I don't see it on their calendar.
Yeah.
So.
And I would assume Kitsap probably doesn't have it on theirs either.
Well, maybe we just address that as we get closer to February, because if we can keep an eye out for that, maybe Terry, you can look a little bit into that also to see what others are doing. We can see if that's something that needs to be on the February agenda. But I think with the Restoring a Park name if Parks Appreciation Day is on there and create an Adopt a Park program, that may be tough to get everything back together, but even kick off a couple of the pros plan items, that would definitely
Yeah.
fill up a Parks Commission meeting.
Yeah. Okay, so. Louise, what do you anticipate the presentation length to be? About 10 minutes, 15?
No, it takes about, Spencer, sometimes it's harder for me to tell when I'm doing it. It took about 15 minutes to do, right? Or 20? There's some
Yeah.
history of the tribe, that in history of the tribe, historically in Gig Harbor, there's how we can include the tribe and celebrate that. What are the possibilities? It takes a few minutes, and then there is going to be discussion.
Right. So, I mean, you're looking at close to an hour for that whole process, probably.
I would say so, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. There are multiple comments that have already come in to be read into the public record. I would guess at least 5 or 6 or 7. So there's going to take some time, and then people are going to use their 3-minute increments too.
And oops, sorry.
Okay, well, that'll take care of February, and March we'll have some of those lingering, and maybe we can have the Adopt a Park program by March.
Yeah, I
into
think
the
March is
agenda.
a better one to kind of round it out with in March.
Yeah, and then the Cushman Trail etiquette signs, that can probably be started soon, fit in where possible.
And how, ideally, those would be in place before summer. Is that a realistic timeline?
Yeah, if the Parks Commission can make a recommendation on the signs themselves, the number of signs, the style of signs, locations of signs, I think it is to be able to get that ordered by end of April, and then have them made and installed probably by June or maybe even July. Okay. We have a lot of seasonal help coming on, hopefully this year, starting in May. So, and we don't have, it's not looking like we're going to have the Maritime Gig Parade in beginning of June. So that's a big time consumer for our operations group. But I think that that's reasonable to think that we can get those signs installed in June or July. If we
Wait, did you say we are or are not going to have a gig?
We're not having a Maritime Gig Parade in
Okay.
June. It's right now the discussion is possibly having it at the very end of August.
Okay.
But that's still up in the air.
So on the signage, what constraints does the Park Commission have as far as coming up with ideas? We need to get a series of signs that other people have used or something we've come up with, and then we present that to you and you say, no, that's wrong, or does the city council have to look at it, or Public Works?
We need to at least report back to city council on this before, as a staff report or something. They don't need to buy off on it because it's in the budget, and the dollar wise, the way our process works for purchasing, if it's below a certain dollar threshold, directors or city administrator can authorize those if it's within the budget amount. So as long as we stay within the budget amount, which I'll have to find out what that amount is, it does not have to go for approval to city council. That might put some constraints on how many signs. We probably can't do the whole Cushman Trail every quarter mile, but maybe at a few key trailheads for now. We also have to make sure we look at the sign permits, because in the right of way, signs are regulated a little differently than on outside of right of way. So these would probably be considered regulatory signs, which have a lot more authority to be just placed however we feel we need to. But they're going to be a little more than just regulatory signs. So we're going to have to talk to planning and see what that'll look like. And gee, if we had our parks manager, this person would probably be a great advocate for us on sign permits.
Yeah, etiquette signs are definitely needed.
Yeah. And maybe we can spend some time over the next, month or two ourselves and just walk the trail and see. Roger, you probably already have a good idea of problematic areas, like steep, long downhills, probably a slow sign, something to that effect. Or, narrower parts of the trail, slow down. I don't know.
Yeah, it's less that what I see is problems with people walking on the wrong side, which creates a conflict with cyclists coming up. People get scared because somebody snuck up on them. Well, they should be walking on the left side of the trail, cyclists on the right, and just switch that around. That way everybody sees everybody coming and going.
Gotcha.
So, okay.
So Jeff, with all of the capital projects rated as a 210, how do we decipher? Is it all just on what's available?
Yeah, I would say that we just focus on the most immediate priorities that are coming up based on their scheduling. Yeah.
Okay. So we have the public hearing next month. We have which involves a presentation from the ad hoc committee, a public hearing, comments, questions from the commission, and then a formal resolution or recommendation to the council, which should take upwards of an hour. And then in addition to that, we're kind of in agreement. So we're going to tackle one of the easier projects, or we're going to jump right into the Parks Appreciation Day.
I think Parks Appreciation Day, if it's found that we're going to try and have a pandemic aware Parks Appreciation Day on the same date as the rest of the nation.
Gotcha. Okay. And that obviously doesn't have to be the whole discussion of Parks Appreciation Day. We can at least get an idea of what we're doing. Because I remember doing it prior to this, and it's encompassing. There was like 3 or 4 meetings to attend, and took 2 or 3 months to get the whole thing planned. But that was with multiple agents, municipalities, and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yep.
And then, so go ahead, Jeff.
Well, and then you've got possibly just focusing in on some of the inventory of parks facilities for the pros plan and master plan discussion. So maybe that's just a kickoff for how you want to, in February, how you want to do that. If we don't kick that off in February, we should definitely kick it off in March, just to make sure that there's some effort being made to develop those lists and develop those inventories.
We could review the form that I did on that February meeting. And or do you want to?
That's a great idea.
Yeah, that might be a good venue for it.
Yeah, and then let's not forget, if not in February, then at least in March, Cushman Trail etiquette signs.
I think pushing that. I think that's a lot for the February meeting. I think we pushed that one to March.
Okay, let's do that.
Etiquette signage. And then the Adopt the Parks program. Is that a possibility to tackle that in the same meeting?
Can I say something about Parks Appreciation that I just found? Parks Appreciation Day at the county and state level cannot occur if Washington hasn't moved to phase 2 under the new governor guidelines. And so the Parks Appreciation Day on the county website is on hold for acceptance into phase 2. And the state says no Parks Appreciation Day. So hold that thought, that that's dependent upon pandemic phasing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, let's see. Maybe that'll be the main discussion in February, about seeing where we are a month from now and seeing how much effort it would take to do a pandemic aware Parks Appreciation Day. If there's enough interest to try and move that forward at the end of April, or the next best time to do it, in my opinion, is fall, October, probably.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
things will be so much different by the fall too.
Yeah.
I mean, Lord
I
willing.
hope so.
Keep
I
our
hope
fingers
so.
crossed.
That's it.
yeah.
Can we say
Yeah. I really hope they're not the same.
Right.
Okay.
Here's county's Parks Appreciation Day page says Saturday, 2021, date to be determined. So
So on hold, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So etiquette sign. So etiquette sign is for sure in March, along with possibly adopt a parks program, depending if we are able to touch on the Parks Appreciation Day in February.
Yeah.
Okay, yes?
Yep, because it helps to know what tasks need to be done if we kind of accomplish the inventory. One of the spaces on that form was ideas for this particular park that you're logging for parks appreciation tasks. So there's a spot on that inventory form for Parks Appreciation Day or Adopt a Park. I think I can't remember how I phrased it for either one or both.
Okay. And then the Crescent Creek visioning is not something we can approach yet. Cushman Etiquette Trail signage. And then the develop lists for the master plan, depending on where we want to try and stick that, if that's February, March, or if that's going to push to April.
That might have to go into April.
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, that might be best if we're going to start tackling the pros plan then. I mean, it might get us ready for that.
Yep.
So that might make sense. Yeah.
I think so. And I would suggest not going too much further than April.
Yeah, just keep it to a quarter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was kind of thinking. Okay.
And then by April, we're also hopefully going to have the discussion on, as I said earlier, on the ANSI storage building design.
That's right.
So
I think that gives us a lot better idea of kind of, and then May forward or April forward is pros plan fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'll stop sharing here.
That sounds good. Does anybody have any questions or if we're going to have any absences in the coming months? There's actually a pretty good chance that I'm going to have to miss at least one meeting in the coming 3 to 4 months, if not 2. I do have a lot of stuff going on right now, and I need to make myself available. So I think Mary would fill in admirably.
Actually, I had a question. So I'd like to get some stuff going. How do I communicate the best way with you folks? Like, I got some plans here. I got some signage that I picked up on some other sites that we could look at just to try to get ahead of the games. Because to be honest, I don't work anymore, so I actually have time to do it. But I want to be aware how to communicate this to you without stepping on any toes of the not privacy, but the Open Meetings Act. But I can't just work in a vacuum, and I think we're going to need to meet more often other than once a month, because we won't get anything done then. I don't know. I guess I don't know, because this is the first commission that I've been on.
One way to do this and still be able to proceed with and fall within the Open Public Meetings Act that I know is to have subcommittees.
Oh.
And so maybe that's part of the discussion. If there's interest in doing a Cushion Trail Etiquette Sign subcommittee, then that group of 3 or 2 or 3 Parks Commission members can meet separately on their own time, whatever works for them, and then report back at a Parks Commission meeting.
All right.
And the same thing can be said for any of these.
Okay, well, I'd certainly be willing to work on the Cushman Trail Etiquette Signage Subcommittee. Do I have another one there, Ben Caron? Ben?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd be happy to work on it with that, Roger.
Don't forget that Terry also has access to create folders on Box so that we can share, and then she can send out links. But also to if one person wants to send information to the entire Parks Commission, just contact Terry and she can coordinate that distribution.
Right. Yeah.
So to make sure.
Between Ben and me, we can chat back and forth without.
Right. We're open communication between Roger and I, and then we'll funnel to the rest of the commission through Terry.
And I care deeply about ANSICH, and I care a lot about Adopt a Park because I've already done some work on that. And not that I don't care about Parks Appreciation, but I don't have given everything else that's going on in the next 90 days, that those two would be my personal interest points. You know, to do some extra work on it.
So are we thinking maybe create subcommittees for each of our tasks up through April, or some of the larger tasks rather? Or should we just kind of do a couple of them and see where we end up?
Yeah, either way, but I'm open.
Yep.
So I was going to say, I would be interested. I was on the Parks Appreciation Day subcommittee last year, but I'm not sure there's a whole lot we can do on it until we know, because we had a plan last year and we had a pretty solid plan on how we were moving forward. I think it would be easy to pick it up again, but we have to wait to see what happens with the pandemic.
Yeah.
So there's not a whole lot we can do for that subcommittee to get back together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that one might not need the subcommittee until we get more information.
Yeah.
I agree with you. That might just be on hold realistically for now.
So it's also
so
true
that
that
leaves us-
if there was a solid plan for Parks Appreciation Day, when it's safe or as whatever, then we can hit that level 2 and schedule it, right? We don't have to start planning. Then we can pull the
Right.
trigger on it if it's ready to go,
do a
or
TBD.
closer to ready to go.
Okay. Sarah, you want to anything that Sarah, is it my understanding that this is your last year on the Parks Commission?
Yeah, and I guess I was gonna ask Terry, I'm not sure when the term is over, so I'm assuming it's in March.
We
You
have,
know-
I think, three different commissioners terms expiring in March, the end of March. So through March 31st.
So I'll be at 2 more meetings, and it is the end of my 3rd term, so I'm ready. I think it's good to have some new blood, and I have some other sort of things in the fire. So I'm not gonna do subcommittees at this point, but I'll still, Parks Commission is one of my pet, or has been in the past, so I still want to be involved, but as far as planning things, I'm not going to be able to. But to that end, like with the Crescent Creek visioning, I'm hoping there's a shareholders committee that I can be involved in and stuff like that. So, but I specifically to Parks Commission, I'm done.
I appreciate your honesty and you know, the realization that a time commitment might not be realistic at this time. So thank you for making us aware of that.
And your long service.
Yes.
We're out.
So, yeah. So we certainly appreciate your contributions for the time being, but yeah, I agree that might not be the best bet for you.
Terry, I think I think I was finishing someone's term up too. So I'm up then too, aren't I?
Yeah,
Who are
it's
the other
Mary, Sarah, and Ben Lawrence.
Yeah.
Wow.
Gotcha. Okay.
So what is the process for that? Can we say we're out, or do you guys say we're out? How does that work? How does that happen?
Typically, if you're interested in reapplying, they open it up for applications and then also ask if you have interest in continuing. So just depends on the pool of applicants, I guess.
So you can't vote us off the island?
Parks Commission, I believe, gives input on the applications.
You know, it also might be like the mafia. Once you get in here, you don't leave.
Yeah.
No, I'm proof that you can get out if you need to.
That's what
Yeah,
you
that's
say
what you
now,
say.
Sarah. That's what you think.
Yeah, it isn't March yet.
Yeah, I
It's
think
true.
really the only way I've seen people leave is they just go into city council.
No.
Ken Mall, Michael Perot, Robin Denson,
Yeah.
Tracy Markley.
Right? It is
That
a-
might,
Oh, stepping
that
stone.
might be a compliment and it might not be.
I have the calendaring down. on my paper, I don't know, Terry, were you taking notes as well? I mean, you got it in the meeting, I guess, yeah. So we have a pretty good idea of what's to come. I think everybody, we'll apprise Ben and Nicole of kind of what's expected at the next meeting and where we're kind of going and see if they want to partake in any of the subcommittees. And just to recap on that, Roger and I are going to work on the etiquette signage, and Luis was the Adopt a Park, and what was the other one, Luis, you said?
Ansich, and then I'm also going to turn in the park inventory.
Do you have a lot on your plate? Do you want to offload any of that?
Some of it's already done, so
Okay.
it needs 15 minutes of my time, and then I can upload it.
If you need to offload anything, feel free to.
I will call. I will call
Okay.
and you'll help.
Yeah.
And then
Okay, Ben, you can add onto my list. I'll also coordinate with Terry, and we can get a kind of a grouping of the plan from Parks Appreciation Day last year. We can put something together that people can look at.
okay,
Because I'll
that's
need
a good
to
idea.
get it. I think some of those are going to be in Nicole's folders. I don't know that I have it all to put it back together,
Gotcha.
most of it.
Okay, and then so we got a little room in case Nicole and Ben want to, join in on a subcommittee. So we got a little leeway there, so they don't feel left out. Let's go back to the agenda. Make sure we got it. Any other questions on the calendaring for the coming months? No. Okay. Sorry, I think we've kind of killed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we kind of talked that to
Done
death. Aside from actually doing the work itself. Parks update report. Jeff, I know we've talked a lot about parks already, but
Got a lot of that.
I know.
Yeah.
If there's anything else you want to.
I was going to just talk about the parks manager, but I think I've talked about it. Any questions you might have on specific parks or the parks manager position?
I walked through the holly forest and it's being invaded by invasive ivy. I cleaned off 4 trees with my family, but it's going to take a Boy Scout troop to clear that thing out.
Yeah, it's something that we have constantly tried to stay on top of with our seasonals. I think that having that reminder that we need to do that is good. I will try and talk to Ken Andrews and see if that's can be on his list for the seasonals this year.
I mean, if
between
not,
the ivy and the maples.
Yeah, if not, we can make it priority number 1 for the Adopt a Parks program. Like that can be the first thing is that.
Yeah, right.
And so my other question is there any treatment that we can do that's not a pesticide or an herbicide to help with that invasive species? Is there like cedar shavings we can put down or anything like that that won't be harmful to the holly?
I don't know. Maybe I can have Ken get a hold of you. We have a new spraying machine that is extremely hot soap, but I thought he said it does fine. It does really well for weeds, but not for woody plants like Scotch broom. We tried on Scotch broom. It didn't really have a good impact on killing Scotch broom, but a lot of other things, spraying along Cushman Trail and in our parks, it does a really good job on anything that's not woody. But let me try and get Ken in touch with you about that.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, feel free to share my number or my email if you need to.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So I had a question. The Austrian Estuary Honoring Project that's the I guess that art project, the Our Fisherman, Our Guardian. Is that the one that was kind of dedicated to the Native Americans, or is this a different?
No, it's the same one.
Okay.
I think I showed pictures recently.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but it was the art is completed. It's sitting at the artist shop over on the ocean, Pacific Ocean, and we are in the process of trying to submit a Shoreline Master Program amendment. And there's, I know Terry has the applications. We've done a cursory review of what the amendment will look like. I need to work with Terry to try and finalize those applications and get them submitted. Once the application is submitted, we can't actually complete the design, and the amendment has to be approved before we can submit a permit application to actually install the art. So it's going to be a while.
Yeah, it is. Sounds like it. 2022 almost.
Yeah, it could be.
Is there a way to like donate the plot of land that the statue is going to go into the tribe itself, and maybe that's like a back door to avoiding some of this?
No, because it's not their, what's the term? Is it truly reservation land?
Uh-huh.
Because it's not the tribe's reservation land, they still have to go through city land use permitting. So it doesn't matter who the owner of the property is.
I was just trying to think creatively. And
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've tried to go other routes without doing an amendment, but for the way this city is set up, this is the process that has to be done. I've talked to City of Paulsbo. They said that art in a park is ancillary to the actual art park itself, so they don't require the same level of permitting for art that they would for other things.
And so the amendment to the Shoreline Master Program, that's going to be for all art in the shoreline area, or is it just that specific?
All art in certain shoreline designations. So the shoreline designation is the key. There's a table of a variety of, I don't know, 6 different shoreline designations, maybe 7.
Yeah, like a working waterfront and like commercial. Yep. Okay.
Yep. And one is actually deep water. So I forget all of them. One is natural environment. Yeah, there's 6 or 7 of them.
Yeah. Because I think we ran into a problem with the donkey engine and trying placement for that back in the day because, yeah, so that was another.
Because that's in the shoreline, all of Donkey Creek Park, well, 95% of Donkey Creek Park is in the shoreline jurisdiction.
Right, there's one little corner where we could stick it.
Right up, yeah, that's right up against the roadway.
Yeah, so it was like, okay, that might give us a little more flexibility if that comes around again, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Jeff? It looked like the fencing was coming down around KLM or being moved.
Oh, yeah, it's being moved. The play structure itself, the vendor who installed the play structure, they're complete. All their work is done. The last remaining task is to have our operations crew pour a concrete sidewalk from the pavilion over to the play structure. Once that's in place, we can call for our final on the building permit. And hopefully that'll pass with flying colors, and then it can be open to the public. We can have a ribbon cutting or virtual ribbon cutting, and the fence will fully come down. One thing that Ken's crew is trying to work out, separate from the actual sidewalk, which they hope to start on forming this week. I don't know if they'll be able to pour with this weather, but they can start forming this week. One thing they've been having troubles with at Veterans Park is vehicles. He can have 2 or 3 times driven onto the field. And so Ken is looking to find a way to put up large rocks or fencing or bollards to still keep the grounds open and not, feel like you're within a penitentiary to get in there or stuck once you're in there. But to also keep people from just driving their vehicles through the middle of the field. So
it's actually split rail fencing and it's already up.
Oh, he did put some of that. Okay.
Yeah, it's already up.
Okay.
I pulled up and I was like, oh, what is that? But then I walked into the field and I saw the car track and I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, and of course, split rail fence isn't going to stop someone because they're going to, but it'll hopefully give most people a pause and say, oh yeah, I really shouldn't just drive or destroy the property.
At first, when I pulled into the park and I saw that like right in my face, it was just like, I didn't really like it, but I get it. Yeah, but
the other option is large rocks. We've talked about large rocks.
Yeah.
What we really need is a more civil society.
Amen.
Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes those 17-year-old boys can be hooligans.
Yes.
I had my fair share.
And you go down to the park late at night and give them the what for.
I ran into this struggle before. I was like, I'm literally like tattling on myself 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's like, because committee reports, I think Luis kind of capped us in, and we'll be apprised of more information on the ad hoc for the restoration project. Roger, anything from Leafline?
I reached out around the beginning of December, actually shortly after our meeting, was able to get their emails from you, of course.
Yeah, I think I was late. I think we just missed our previous meeting or something like that. I
Yeah.
apologize.
So I reached out to Brienne and Claire. Claire's on vacation, and it doesn't look like they have any meeting until probably February. They said they don't even have a January meeting scheduled. So they said for me to subscribe to their website so I could get notification on their meetings, and I can attend one of their meetings to see kind of what they want, sort of what they might need from us. I'm actually a little more heartened to hear that GIS isn't considered engineering. I could imagine that if they needed something from Gig Harbor other than just, yeah, we're part of this system, it might be mapping, you know, some sort of okay, where are your trails and can you give us a good map? So I'm heartened to hear about that, but I will, I'll continue to reach out now that, you know, the first of the year, my birthdays and everything done. I'll reach back with them and see what they've got for January, because January's not over yet. So
Yeah.
we'll
I
be,
think I want to say they met quarterly. I think were their meetings.
yeah, maybe it is quarterly. So
Yeah.
things will be slow on this side.
Yeah, I agree with you on the mapping too, because Sarah and I took a walk the other day and we agreed there's a serious lack of all the trails she showed me in town here that I had no idea even existed. It was awesome. Yeah, so I think with the pros plan update, I think that'd
be good. Yeah.
Definitely. So I'm glad to hear that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then okay, so Terry or Jeff, maybe you guys can help me out with the public comment. Do I read it all?
We have a call-in listener. I can see if they are here for public comment.
Absolutely.
Okay, phone number ending in 5966. Do you have public comment for the Parks Commission?
I'm showing the person on
I think
mute.
your phone is muted.
I think do you press 9 to unmute or something like that?
It's an interesting phone number.
All right, caller, you're on the line.
Is it *9 or *6 to unmute? Don't know.
No, I don't remember off the top of my head. So, okay, maybe
*6 will unmute your phone. Guess not.
Okay. Well, if you had something to share and you still feel like sharing, feel free to submit it to Terry via email to the city, and we'd be happy to include it into our next meeting. Or if you'd like to share at the next meeting, feel free to rejoin us. Thank you for attending. As far as all the submitted public comment, that was, I think, mostly specific to the postponed agenda item.
Correct. Everything we received was for the Parks, restoring Parks name.
Do we still read that? No, we're good. Okay.
Save it.
Does it get submitted, or is it just? Do these people's comments still stay with us at any point, or do they have to resubmit?
I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to talk to Katrina to see what she thinks the process should be. She's a master of public hearings. Because if the recommendation is changing, their comments might not be valid anymore. So let me talk to Katrina about that. We're gonna repost and everything else, like we said.
Okay.
So
I certainly don't want to take their time that they put into this and disregard it. And so, okay, awesome. I think this is a pretty good meeting, guys. I think it went really well.
We got a lot done.
Yeah, I feel like it. I mean, if we had that public hearing too, it would have been a lot later. But yeah. Okay. Well, Happy New Year's, everybody. And if I have make a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, and seconded, and all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
All right. So pass.
Great.
Adjourn.
See you guys
Thank you.
later. Thanks,
Bye. Good
Spencer.
night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Spencer. Have a good night.
Thank you.